قد كفاني علم ربي من سؤالي واختياري فدعائي وابتهالي شهيد لي.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Idris Kennedy. I'm a recent graduate of the full-time Alimiyyah program at As-Suffa, and today we are joined by Abdul Hakim, and we'll be discussing life on the as a full-time student on the Alimiyyah program, both the studies as a student and future career prospects after graduating, and everything in between.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Abdul Hakim, as you said before. So I have questions in terms of the full-time Alimiyyah course and what the course itself entails if I were to join. So one of my first questions is, it seems like a long process, so it's a big commitment. Now, is there a lot of benefit that comes out of it from this long journey?
Yeah, I would say so. In the As-Suffa program is a 6-year full-time program, and there's immense benefit in the program. It's a long journey. It's not an easy one, but great benefit comes both in academic study, in understanding the deen in a textual perspective, but also its application, and as a historical understanding it benefited me widely, and then the spiritual side as well was immensely beneficial. So it's really benefited me in all these areas, as well as things not directly related to the Alimiyyah studies, just like kind of life skills, leadership or working in the community. So it's benefited me directly in those those areas of study, and then indirectly in community activities and organisation and things like that.
Okay. So I mean, one of the questions that comes to students who have previously studied any sort of Islamic studies is what is the level of Arabic that you learn, or what is the level of the study itself? How high does it reach? Is it very thorough? Is it basic? Or
okay, that's a really good question. So when you start in year 1, the teachers assume you know no Arabic, except just how to read the letters. You can read the script, but in terms of understanding, they expect you to know 0, and so you're starting from scratch. And for the first 3 years, you will be focusing on Arabic language with a few other subjects in and around that. But for the first 3 years, you will be doing introductory Arabic, intermediate, and then you go to the very advanced book. So the most advanced book they do is the Alimiyyah of Ibn Malik, which is a 1,000-couplet poem, which has got an explanation by Ibn Aqil. It's probably one of the most advanced books in Arabic that exists around the world. So by year 3, you'll be reading portions of that. And so you get to a very, very high level. And reality is all these subjects, there is no end, they're all oceans. Each individual subject, fiqh, aqidah, tafsir, nahu, grammar, they're all oceans. And so this course, when it comes to Arabic language, morphology as well, which is the conjugation of verbs, you'll start with totally nothing, and you'll build yourself up to a very, very proficient level that you can go to any place in the Islamic world, and your grammar and your morphology, and that's in terms of Arabic language, will be the best it can be. So you'll be able to compete or hold your own with any student from Al-Azhar or Medina University. If you put your work in, you'll be more than qualified to be able to do that.
So essentially, someone who perhaps goes abroad to study, they sort of study the same books as you do here, and perhaps if someone puts their head down at the end of the 6 years, the course, or however long the course is, that person would sort of have similar type of capabilities as someone who studied abroad.
So certain books are kind of, you could say, are studied internationally, but not, you won't study every single book you study on the As-Suffa Alimiyyah program will be the same as that studied abroad. Be certain similarities, like the Alimiyyah of Ibn Malik, like I mentioned, that's studied all over the world really. But places like Medina University, for example, the way the kind of does Nizami system from the Indian subcontinent, its focus on grammar and morphology, I think is a very, very high level, a very, very detailed level of grammar and morphology, which is Nahu and Sarf. But if you go to like Medina University, I'm not sure they focus on it in the same way, and so that's a very unique part of Arabic language, especially from the Indian subcontinent, which obviously As-Suffa here in the UK is an offshoot from that. So you will definitely, in that regard, you'll probably have an advantage maybe. The way we study Sarf is very, very unique, I'd say. Sarf, which is morphology.
Perhaps it's like you said, they take you from the beginning, assuming you don't know anything.
Yes.
As opposed to perhaps in other establishments, they might assume you probably know how to read and write already, or some
maybe yes.
language.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then maybe there's an expectation of a certain level, whereas here at As-Suffa there's an expectation of literally you're coming as zero, and they will build you up from scratch all the way to be able to, interrogate any of the books that you want to research.
And hopefully at the end of the course you'll be able to basically open up any Arabic textbook.
Yeah,
be able to
that's actually one of the things which is one of the highlights for me. After this course of 6 years, I feel more than confident to be able to, if anyone gives me a particular issue, I don't know the answer, but I feel very confident to at least go and know where to look, how to look up an issue. If someone gave me, for example, a chain of narration, I can go and look up the individual narrators. I can go and find if the hadith is authentic or not. Or, if I'm looking at a verse of Quran, I feel very confident to go to many, many different books of tafsir and look up what everyone says about it. And so it's that's one of the highlights for me of the course has been the ability to now navigate kind of the corpus of Islamic knowledge or history which exists, an ability to at least access it and understand it, and the understanding will continue as 6 years is just the beginning. You're just a junior, really, reality. You're going to continue studying for the rest of your life. But that's one of the highlights for me, is being able to read those advanced books, those advanced discussions, and research things for yourself.
So when I've been in some sort of Islamic studies since I was young. So I came to the UK in 2010, so I've been here about 12 years now. I came from Spain, and when I first came here, my reading wasn't that good. So then my parents, they put me into Hifz class, so I was doing Hifz class part-time for about 3 years, while going to school, doing GCSEs and A-levels, and it was very, very hard. It was very hard to the point where whatever I had memorized, I kind of had forgotten. So then what I did was, after my year 11, I joined full-time madrasa for a full year, just to go over the juz that I had learned, which was a 15 at the time, and then had 15 left and finished for the next 15, sort of when I started college. So I realized that the difficulty level between doing any sort of Islamic studies, Hifz particularly, full-time and doing it part-time was very hard. So I could only imagine that as someone who is, for example, maybe 20, 25, might be married, like I'm married, I just got married recently, and thinking of doing the Alimiyyah course full-time while sustaining a family, or while working and stuff, is very difficult. Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly the case. I mean, I'm married with 3 kids, and to dedicate yourself full-time to studies, like you mentioned, to try and do Hifz whilst doing your GCSE, it's really challenging. It can be done, but it's really challenging. And I'd say that Alimiyyah is the same. It's a full-time course of study. You're here from like 9 o'clock till 2. But then that's not when your studies end. You've got to do homework, you've got to do preparation for the next day, review notes. So reality is, in class you're 6 hours, but then you may be doing at least a few hours outside of class. And then at that same time, you've got to look after your kids, your commitments with family. So it is very challenging. Income is a very important thing as well, how you're going to be supporting yourself. So there's no one answer to that. But many people have got, I suppose, family members who support them, and that's probably one of the most common ways. Other people have got, if you want to call, like side hustles or internet business, or they've got property on rent. You've got to find a way to try and supplement your income whilst you're, and you have to be prepared, I'd say. Whatever you earn is going to be less. So you're going to survive on a lot less than you would if you're working full time. I certainly was the case, because I was a project manager for a software company, and I left that full time, which was very well paid, and then I left that full time to come and study. And whilst I did have a couple of income streams, but they were much lower, that income stream, even though it was less, I did feel it stretched more. I mean, at the end of the day, when I look back, I don't know how over 6 years I managed a family, a wife with 2 kids, and then I had a third during the course. It's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing, because I don't see how it would have worked any other way. But that certainly was the case. It's a challenging thing, and like my wife as well, she had to adjust. It's not just me as a student having to adjust. Your family has to adjust. So it's not just a test for you; it's a test for your family. And so my wife had to adjust to different level of income and my time. And so that's probably most important as well, is that the support you have from your your family, because you're not just an island by yourself. Everything you do impacts other people. And so I'd say my wife was a huge support. She was very understanding and accommodating compared to like life before Alimiyyah, when I was a software project manager, to afterwards. Things changed a lot, but you know, my wife was, mashallah, very, very supportive. And I think if you didn't have that, you know, I don't think someone would be able to continue, because that would just, after 6 years, would probably grind on someone. So Allah helps you. People who are sincere and people who try their hardest, Allah will make a way. But these are important things to consider.
Yeah, I mean, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf as well is very famous. He also said that because of the support of his wife, and he's just one of the examples. You've got many examples out there. If you have a strong wife, good wife, then things become easier. Like you said, of course, I can't only imagine that it's not something easy. So like when I was at uni, for example, now uni, the hours in uni, they vary. It's not like a full-time job where you're working for 40 hours or you're dedicating 40 hours a week. But what happens is, like you said, you tend to go home and carry on working, and there are periods for like for the span of a month or 2 months, you're basically working like 14 hours a day, because you know you're revising at home, going to uni, coming back, and all that stuff. And on top of that, having to do something on the side or along with that would be like very difficult. So when I finished my hifz, now I had learnt the Quran, but it did not benefit me outwardly because I did not know what it was talking about. I didn't know how to go about my lifestyle. So then the thought did cross my head, should I study Alimiyyah? Now, but then if I did study Alimiyyah, would I be able to carry on my secular studies? Like, would I be able to go to university and so on? Yeah. So I didn't go full time because I just thought, let me just sort this path out. Let me just get my studies out of the way, and then in the future I'll consider going to Alimiyyah. So now I'm at the stage where I'm considering doing full-time Alimiyyah, but also there's a dilemma where I just came out of university. Now I've not started my career path. Should I delay my career path and do the Alimiyyah instead? Because like you said, obviously you have to sacrifice that. Now it's a sacrifice for me to make if I want to do the full-time Alimiyyah. Now you don't know what's at the end of the journey. Obviously, only Allah knows what's at the end of the 6 years, right? It might be that now that you finish Alimiyyah, you've sacrificed your previous job. Allah might give you a better job. But so I'm at that stage as well where I don't know whether I should start the Alimiyyah course full time or.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one, because the answer to that question really, it's not a one answer fits all. Everyone's personal circumstances will dictate the answer to that. If you've got the family support, if you've got the financial ability to support yourself, then it's something that yes, you should. You know, if you really want to, you can do that. But if it's going to put your family in financial difficulty, then it's something that your obligation to your family would come first. So that's obviously a very subjective thing. The other thing I would say, picking up what you said, like to understand the Quran, is like you have to ask yourself, what is your objective of studying the Alimiyyah course? If your objective is just to become a better Muslim and to learn your deen, and then the Alimiyyah course, the first few years will help you with that. But then, to be a good Muslim, you don't need to study the advanced topics of Usul al-Fiqh and Usul al-Hadith and Aqaid, Aqidah. You don't need to study all that level. For me personally, I left software project management because I wanted to be a teacher, Islamic studies teacher, and so these advanced topics are very much needed for that. The way I would look at it, if you want to be a doctor, you would take a medical degree. But if you want to get fit and healthy, doing a doing a medical degree is a bit overkill. Yeah. You can be healthy without that. And so that's the kind of analogy I would draw. So some people think to do an Alimiyyah course is what you need to be, just to be a good Muslim. And so I would say that intention is really, really important. What do you hope to be? Because being just a good Muslim, a good member of society, doesn't need to know chains of narration and how to identify who's a weak narrator and these very nuanced ikhtilaf or differences of opinion of madhabs and scholars. It doesn't need that. But if you're going to be a teacher and you want to be a leader, so to speak, in the community, then you need to know these things. And so that intention from the beginning needs to be clear, because just doing the Alimiyyah course to be a good Muslim, you will inshallah learn a lot, but that's equivalent of doing a medical degree just to become healthy. It's a bit overkill. So intention is very important. But what I would say is to parents and even people like yourself, 20 or 25, I think what the Muslim community needs, it needs capable, motivated, passionate, able young students to choose the Alimiyyah as their main career path, not as a side thing. Because if the Ummah is starting to churn out quality students who then become leaders, that's what the community need. We need good leaders who know the UK, the society, our culture, but then are fully versed in the Islamic sciences, and then that can marry together to become leaders. And so I would say, even if your intention is very important, but I think people need to start making the intention for themselves or parents for their children that, no, I want my children to be an Islamic scholar or a leader of the community.
Yeah.
And so that would fit in with your intention as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have loads of ulama around, right?
Yes.
But how many of them are really, truly knowledgeable? How many of them,
Yeah.
are steadfast? How many of them are actually going over the knowledge and keep it within themselves? And I feel like a lot of people in our society, they kind of look down to a level to people who study the Alimiyyah because they think it's something easy. They think, it's just a mulana, it's just a muallim, whatever. Whereas, if you go to university for 3 years, that's qualified as, that's classed as a very high sort of education. But the 6 years in Alimiyyah is just, they consider any graduate from Alimiyyah the same as, any high level speaker. It's just how good you can speak these days. It comes down to that kind of thing.
I think that's just that's a lot of ignorance, and maybe there are people who have graduated from the madrasa system who have maybe not put their heart and soul, and so maybe that image that has been portrayed is not entirely made up. Yeah. There are people perhaps who haven't given their all. That there's probably truth to that, but at the end, the reality of the situation is the Dars Nizami Alimiyyah course. It's neither an undergraduate. It's like you could say it's almost like a master's qualification. It's between an undergraduate and a master's. The level of detail you go into, you can speak to some master's students. They won't cover the nuances that we cover on the Alimiyyah.
As you mentioned earlier, that the Alimiyyah from the beginning, it takes you from a stage where they assume you don't know anything, and they build you up slowly. So as someone who maybe hasn't studied the language or the Islamic studies before, coming in, how challenging is it for that person? Like, for example, how much memorizing is there to do? How much understanding do you need? And, how quickly does it get hard?
Yeah. So what I'd say is, it is, depending on what you studied before, it can be quite a big culture shock or a change to what you're used to. I'd say the Western method doesn't focus on memorization, it focuses mostly on kind of understanding, whereas like kind of traditional, if you want to say back home or Eastern styles, they focus a bit more on memorization. And I think Islamic tradition has always got both, which is an element of rogue memorization, but along with that comes understanding as well. So yes, there is elements of memorization, and I say in the first year, definitely morphology, which is verb conjugation. There's a lot of verb conjugation which you just have to memorize, and in grammar, lots of rules you just have to memorize. So there is a fair bit, but once you get used to that habit, it's very logical. It all fits together. It's not you're not memorizing random, unrelated pieces of information. They all are linked. And when you can make that link, then everything fits together. Yeah. So it is challenging, but you just got to put your head down, and it's not a sprint. 6 years is a long time, and so just you're here for the long run. And if you've got that in your mind, you just do a bit every single day, and that consistency will see you through to the end 100%. And then managing your time as a married student, I'm able to go home at 2:00. Those people who are not married, they stay until 5 or 6, depending on the exact finishing time. For me personally, as a married student, I went home at 2, and I got to pick up my kids every day from school. Whereas if I was working full time, that never happened. So I actually got to spend more time with my kids over the last 6 years, which has been a big blessing. And then I would manage my time once the kids and everyone's gone to sleep. That would be when everyone's there's no one awake at home. That's when I would do my personal work. That's just how I managed it. And I think a lot of people tend to do that, is when there's no other requirements at home, you just do your studies then. And as long as you're doing your studies at home, with your work at madrasa, you'll be fine. If you don't do any work outside of class, you will fail, and you will slowly, it's like treading water, you can keep the water above your head above water, but if you don't work outside of class, that water will start to go higher and higher, and you'll basically drown because you're just relying on what you remember. And so in those first few years, making sure you go over your notes at home is probably the most important thing, and consistency in that. If you do that, you'll be fine. And I see the people who end up quitting or falling out, if not for like family reasons or financial reasons, it's because of the work, and they're not putting in that work outside of class. But I think if you do that, you work outside diligently, continuously and consistently, you'll be fine. And that's in the first few years, it's the most important.
Okay, so as you said, you go home at 2 o'clock, but the students that, let's say, are not married, they stay till 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So I'm assuming, do they spend a couple hours within the madrasa doing their work, preparing for the next day or something?
Exactly, yeah. So those people who are not married, that time from 2 till 6 or 2 till 5, that is their preparation time, the review of the day and the preparation for the next day.
Okay.
And they can do more at home as well if they want. That's up to them. But yeah, that's what it's for. But for married students or people who work, or older mature students, which I was, then you have to find a different way. Okay. And like I did it is when everyone's gone to sleep and there's no one requiring anything from you, then you can just focus on your revision and everything. So
essentially you finish your classes, you're teaching at 2 o'clock, and after that you probably get a break.
I'll go and pick up the kids from school.
Normal students who are studying
they'd have lunch. They'd have lunch. Pray dhuhr depending summer or winter. Have a lunch break, relax, and then they'd start their kind of revision from 3 till 6 or something.
Okay. So if you stay in till 5 o'clock, then you prepare your lessons for the next day and you do the homework for the current day. That means when you go home, would you still have to put more time in? Or?
So there's no maximum. The more you do, the better. So there's some students, maybe they can survive on doing that, from 3 o'clock till 6 o'clock, their revision and their preparation. But some people, it depends how efficiently you use that time. And people, students, you got to cut people some slack. Doing a bit afterwards as well, it is only going to help, to be honest. There's no upper limit. That's the reality. So the more you do, you'll always benefit. That's the way I'd say.
And would you say that perhaps the first couple of years are more challenging, more difficult, but after that you sort of fall into a routine and it becomes more linear in a way?
Kind of, yeah. I would say the effort you put in the first 3 years. First 3 years, if you really master the first 3 years, the final 3 years are a lot easier. The content is hard. It's not hard, but you're not struggling now with like certain Arabic terminologies and grammar. You've learned that. But if you can deal with the advancing complexity because now the basics are mastered, or at least solid enough, so you can now add on additional complexity. But if you take the first 3 years lightly and just chill and don't put your full effort in, just scrape a pass, 50% or whatever the pass mark is, then when you get to the advanced years, now you're going to have two complexities, which is the gaps in your knowledge from the first 3 years, and then the advancing complexity of the knowledge now in the upper 3 years. So if you look after the first 3 years, that's like the foundation of your building, and the final 3 years will be a lot more simpler. And so those three, I'd say the first 3 years are absolutely essential, because that's going to be the kind of deciding factor, those people who start to drop out, because now it starts to, like I said, the water starts to get higher and higher. But those first 3 years are the most important. Master those, and I think everything.
Okay, that's fine. And in terms of, so let's say you get to the 6th year and you finish the course. Now, the sort of achievement that we'll receive, right? So the sort of qualification that we'll receive after completing the Alimiyyah. Now, how is that? Is that something that people recognize outside in the world? So, for example, I've done my degree, now I've got a certificate. If I go outside, I can show people the certificate, or for any jobs or anything, in the outer world, and it was recognized. How about the Alimiyyah? If I don't want to teach full time, if I don't want to become a full-time teacher or a traditional teacher per se, how would my studies be recognized outside?
No, it's a really good question, and this is actually a point of not contention, but it's something that everyone's grappling with, because at the end of the day, the Alimiyyah Darul Uloom course is not recognized in the UK as a individual kind of course of study. Like, even though the level, the complexity you study is of undergraduate or master's level, or a combination of both, it's not recognised as such by the UK government or the educational institutes in this country. And then at the same time, if you do a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies, it's not of the depth that you will do in the Alimiyyah. That's the reality. You do an Islamic studies degree from anywhere. The way you study in the Darul Uloom or the Alimiyyah course, it's a completely different way of study. And the thing is, the way we study is a chain of narration. Like, when you graduate, you will get a sanad, or a chain from yourself to your teachers all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. And our deen, our religion, is based on sanad, on chain. And so you cannot get rid of this Alimiyyah system. and just replace it with a BA degree in Islamic studies, because you just admit the chain. There is no chain between you and your forefathers all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. But then, like you said, how are we going to then, get a recognised qualification and earn?
Yeah.
So the good thing with the Suffa, alhamdulillah, is that they've joined with Markfield, which is an institute based in Leicester, where the final 2 years of your Alimiyyah, so year 5 and 6, will be done concurrently with years 2 and 3 of a BA undergraduate degree. And so the aim is, by the end of year 6 of your Alimiyyah, you'll come out with your Alimiyyah, your Sanad, your chain of narration, the traditional way of studying, and you'll come out with a recognised BA degree that you can then take anywhere and say that you are qualified as a BA, undergraduate qualification. And with this in mind, I would actually consider sending my children to this, because, like my son or my daughter, because they would get the Islamic education, but then they'd also get the degree as well. And then with that degree just it's a piece of paper that buys you options. If you're not doing a degree that requires like some professional skill like medicine, pharmacy, law, these are like degrees that you need. Many people just do random degrees like business management, business administration, history. They're just random subjects. So these are not enough. You need to do something else. Everyone's got a degree in the modern world. Everyone has got a degree. So there's nothing really special about having a degree in business management. What's become is, in the quality of education in the Western, institutional system of the university it's watered down. The quality is, people are just churning out degrees like anything. So the degree is ultimately like a ticket. It gets recognition in the country. You can take it to employers, be it a school. You can then get onto PGC, which is a postgraduate education. So using your BA degree in Islamic studies, you could get onto a postgraduate course and become a teacher using your BA. And so it gives you that degree gives you a ticket. And that ticket lets you open many doors. And so alhamdulillah, Suffa are offering that. The key thing is, we're not here to water down the Alimiyyah program. It cannot be substituted with a degree in Islamic studies or even a PhD in Islamic studies. It will not, because you cannot replace this system. But the question is, how do we give our students then, or graduates, the ability to be in the world? And that's where the marrying of the degree and the Alimiyyah together, without sacrificing at all on the Alimiyyah quality and the course of study, which has been for hundreds of years, the method that has been studied, those are married together in order to do that. So you will have, if you do that, you will come out with a degree, and that will give you options.
Yeah, because having gone to university myself, I realised that a lot of the times you do a degree not because you're connected to the subject or because you really like the subject. You just do it either for monetary purpose or a job or anything like that. So a lot of people in the world would be able to study just the Islamic studies in university, and they would not gain any spiritual benefit.
Yes.
Right. So coming to As-Suffa full time, you would perhaps develop that spirituality, and then afterwards you get your degree, and then get some sort of means for the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's not to a BA in Islamic studies or a PhD in something. I'm not saying it's without benefit. Yes, the research, the methodology, the way they approach studies, there's a lot of benefit in there. But like you said, like the spiritual side in an Islamic, in a West kind of secular university, there's no real consideration for, we'd say, the tarbiyah or the spiritual rectification of the student. Tarbiyah, it's like it's nurturing. It's the word in Arabic. It means to nurture, and so you're nurturing a student from year 1 all the way to year 6, and so that spiritual element is definitely what you won't get in there. But by coming to the Alimiyyah program and getting that, you'll get that certificate. So, and like you said, you get the both sides of the coin, the spiritual development, and as well as that BA degree. It's like a doctor. You do a 5-6 year doctor degree. But your rank is a junior doctor, and then it's another 10 years to become a consultant. And I'd say that Islamic science is exactly the same. Like you finish your 6 years, you're not a mufti, or an alim. Okay, technically you're an alim, but you're junior, like a junior doctor. For the next 10 years, you're now going to specialise in the field, in practical application and continued study, and then 10 years later you can become quote-unquote a consultant or a mufti or an advanced scholar. So that's the key thing, but it gives you the tools now to shift from dependent on other people to become an independent student. That's what the Alimiyyah gives you.
But you really have to have love for knowledge, because for
Yes.
someone to become knowledgeable, it's not coming first in the Alimiyyah course or coming first in class. It's basically what you do afterwards, isn't it? Yeah, so essentially, okay, you said that our deen is something that's been preserved for 1500 years and it's been passed down in a specific manner. So in terms of the teachers that you have here in As-Suffa, what sort of caliber of teachers are they? How good are they? How qualified are they?
MashaAllah. So I studied a degree before. I did a business management degree, and then about 6, 7, 8 years as a professional project manager. Then I came here, and what I experienced from the teachers was a very, very high level. Someone who studied before. The way As-Suffa seem, I don't know how other institutes manage it, but the way As-Suffa does it is they try to make the teachers who are experts in a particular field. So, for example, grammar or morphology, they've got teachers who have been teaching that subject for like 10, 15 years. So they are like, they're experts in many fields, but they are specialists in one particular area where they've been teaching 15 years, and they try and do that for every subject. So morphology, you'd have someone who's taught it for 15 years. Grammar, someone who's taught it for 15 years. Likewise, and all the teachers combined each of them have taught for 10 years each plus.
Yeah.
So not only are they experienced in their particular field, that's not enough. They're experienced as teachers itself. They've taught so many hundreds, thousands of students, and so you benefit from that. And for me, coming from, I've studied, and I've as a BSc, I've done that, and I studied and worked in the professional world, and then come to As-Suffa, it married very nicely for me. The quality of education, the way they explain things, the expertise of the teachers, it was excellent. Alhamdulillah, and I benefited a lot. And it's those things that can't be learnt in books.
Yeah.
That's also what you get from an Alimiyyah, things that cannot be learnt from books. These teachers have been teaching 15 years, and it's hard. It's not like teachers get paid 60, 70, 80k a year, like professors from university.
Yeah.
So they can imagine to study and be worth it. The reality, if you were to take their level of, if you were to take the teacher's level of academic achievement, their years of experience, and take that to any other industry in the world, they would easily be on 70, 80k in the IT industry or medical industry, whatever it might be. But for these teachers to be in the Islamic, they get far, far less than that, what they're worth. So that commitment, is selfless in reality. In reality, they could have put those years and that effort into a IT degree and be earning 100k.
Yeah.
So that selflessness is this can't be learnt in books.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you know they are genuine people.
Yes.
Genuine teachers and genuine people of high level of iman. Because you have to have that kind of level of iman. Why would you sacrifice your whole life earning low income when you can earn high income? Yeah,
and imagine after 20 years you get bored. People get bored, but they're still here, day in, day out. Rain, wind, or sunshine, whatever, they're here. So it's like the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. He said, "Whoever seeks a path of knowledge, Allah makes the path to Jannah easy." And that's what it's about. Seeking this path, it's not easy. It's full of challenges, but the reality is all of life is challenges. Do you think it's easy getting a medical degree or easy getting an IT degree and working as a software everything is hard. But in this one, Allah, in your hardship, He makes necessarily, by studying knowledge and teaching knowledge, necessarily comes as part of it, your path to Jannah is made easy. So that's unavoidable. You can't avoid that. Even if you want to avoid the path of Jannah becoming easy, you can't. Allah makes it easy. So it's an amazing thing, our teachers. It's the things you cannot learn in books. It's the environment. It's not without challenges. Plenty of challenges. You may disagree with your teachers. You may have a different point of view, but you can discuss and you can have that debate, so to speak, with respect, with adab. As long as you disagree with respect and adab, it's open. Discuss. Alhamdulillah, I've discussed with many of my teachers things and asked them questions, and they're always open to discuss.
Friendly as well. Or?
Friendly, but it's not without its challenges. But what I'd say is, the 6 years, it's in the challenges. It's about overcoming the challenges, which is part of the ilm itself. There's ilm in the books, and there's ilm in the process. The process itself is ilm. If you stop and reflect, the challenges that you go through, overcoming those challenges is part of the ilm. It's not a separate thing. It's part of it. And you sitting at home doing your revision and your preparation, that's part of the process. And you surmounting your challenges, whatever it be in the classroom or with other students, with the natural conflict that exists in life, you being able to navigate that properly, that is part of the ilm. People will quit or they'll give up because of challenges with family, with finances, with maybe conflict with people they don't get on with. They'll quit because of those things. But in reality, those things are to be surmounted just like your revision, just like your preparation. And if you look at it like that, it's a whole system which has been passed down generation to generation. So what do you think? Do you think the full-time Alimiyyah course is something you'd be interested in joining?
Personally, I would love to. Having studied, memorized the Quran, I would love to know what the meaning is. I would love to know the rulings, and not just be a blind follower, because in this day and age, a lot of people, because they can't give time to the Alimiyyah or they can't give time to Deen, we end up sort of going on Google and YouTube and just watching scholars that we've never met. We don't know what their lifestyle is. We don't know how they are. We don't know how much knowledge they truly have, or what they're saying is right or not. Like you said, when you study the Alimiyyah course, you have the capability to sort of open a book and find out by yourself, is this right, is this wrong, rather than just being a blind follower.
This is the key thing with blind follower. Everyone is following someone. People who think they're not following, everyone is following someone. But either you're following a tradition with a chain, teacher from teacher, heart to heart, or you're following someone on YouTube or some random unconnected person. Everyone's following someone, and you follow a tradition or you don't. And alhamdulillah, with the Alimiyyah, you're following 100%. You're following a tradition, and within that, you can navigate within that tradition, and you know how to navigate it.
And do you also establish? You probably also establish a great relationship with your teachers as well. You spend 6 years with them. You see them day to day, and like you having completed your Alimiyyah. Now that you've graduated and you've left the establishment, do you still have that connection with the teachers?
That's a very good point, because look, every teacher's different, got their own personality. You get on with different teachers, like everyone. But alhamdulillah, the thing is, you've got now a lifelong connection with your teacher, and you have to be connected to your teachers. We're students, we're wet behind the ears, we don't know how real life is. They've got 10, 15 years, 20 years experience in real life. So having that connection, lifelong connection, I've got the contact with all my teachers. I can ask them any question, knowledge, or even practical application, what should I do in here? People have come to me already with questions, and I will refer them. If I'm going to answer myself, I'll ask the advice of my teachers. And having that, it's a really good point. Having that connection with your teachers that you can always lean on, it's a big blessing. Alhamdulillah. I hope you enjoyed this discussion and found it beneficial. If you'd like to know more about the Alimiyyah course, then please visit the website, and the details of which are in the description below. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, bless us all, to serve His religion, and make this knowledge an argument for us, not against us on the Day of Judgment, because really that's what matters, is the rectification of ourselves, so that we can rectify the community around us. Inshallah, ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.